Hey guys, my name is Josh. I'm the lead pastor at the Rock Church, and I want to take just a minute to chat with you. If you'll give me 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the most, I would love just to talk to you about how does love handle sexuality, all right? Now, you're watching this video either because you've been following along and on our YouTube channel and you saw this series on love handles and you're like, oh, I want to see this message, or you came to this site maybe through another avenue. Whatever it is, let me just start by saying this is not the original video that was posted on this YouTube channel. The original video was one that I preached 2 years ago and I have since taken down. And here's why I took it down, all right? I took it down because I realized that I said something in it that just wasn't biblical. See, you need to understand my job, my life, my calling, that I'm a pastor at a church, and every week I stand in front of people and I communicate grace and truth as we find it through Scripture and in the life of Christ. And, you know, I'm a guy, I don't teach in a manuscript form. I'm a very relational communicator. And what happened on that weekend is I actually said one wrong word. But I put that one word in the wrong place. And where I put it in my sentence actually made the whole sentence very unbiblical. It was an unbiblical idea, and it was an idea that obviously I don't believe in because it wasn't from a biblical mindset. So I pulled the video, and I would do that on any topic. If I recognize that I said something about greed that was unbiblical, or about parenting that was unbiblical, or about sexuality that was unbiblical, I would pull it. Yeah, I do feel like the topic is one that is still worth having a video over, and I want to make sure people understand, one, why I pulled it, but also I really just want to talk about this topic of how does love handle sexuality, because it's a difficult topic. All right, and it's one we need to discuss because everybody's talking about it, that people are asking questions about sexuality. And when I say sexuality, I don't just mean LGBTQ+, all right? I mean all aspects of sexuality. I mean about, should I be having sex before I'm married? Is it okay to have sex outside of marriage? What do I do with my lust issue? What about same-sex attraction or same-sex intimacy? I mean, those are questions that people are asking. And this is what I really believe. The church should be a safe place to ask questions. Hear this on the front end, that the church is a place where everyone belongs. All right? When let me just speak about our church, The Rock, that we are a church that says, come as you are, because we want everybody to come in and to investigate faith, all right? Now, I know that means that everybody who is here doesn't believe the exact same way that I do, all right? I know that there are people who are here maybe for the first time who are just starting to walk with Christ or maybe don't even know Jesus. Well, obviously, I have a deep faith in Jesus, and maybe they don't. So, obviously, we don't believe the exact same way. That's okay. It's a safe place to come in and investigate faith and investigate questions and investigate how does love handle sexuality, all right? And as we've been doing this series, we've been talking about if you're going to handle difficult things, whether it's sexuality or racism or addiction, then you've got to do it with grace and truth. Hold on just a second. I've got this little object lesson here. I don't know if you remember the 80s or not, all right? I'm a child of the 80s, and this was an exercise band that we used to use back in the 80s and the 90s. And the way this exercise band works is that you got to pull on both sides, all right? And if you pull on both sides, the tension that is felt is what actually brings the growth. Even right now, I'm feeling this in my chest because I'm pulling against one another, and it's in that tension that I feel growth, all right? And that's the way it is with these tough issues, all right? Let's just talk about sexuality for a second. That it is in the tension of grace and truth where growth is found. Unfortunately, many times when it comes to this issue, either people, and not just this issue, like I said, the issues of racism and addiction and all that, really pretty much anything in life, is too many times people will either only grab a hold of grace or they'll only grab a hold of truth. And if all I do is grab a hold of truth, but I have no grace, well, there's no tension. Then you can't have any growth. All right? Or on the same side, if I only grab a hold of grace, but I don't ever communicate truth, again, there's no tension and there's no growth. So what I want to do is I want to be like Jesus, because Jesus said that Jesus came with all grace and truth. There's a book in the Bible, I call it a biography. It was written by a man named John. And John wrote this biography of Jesus, and in John chapter 1, verse 14, he said, Jesus came full of grace and full of truth. And when it comes to tough topics, we need to do the exact same. But, hear this, we need to make sure we know which one we lead with. Do you lead with grace, or do you lead with truth? Now, I think on this issue of sexuality, I think, unfortunately, the church has had it wrong. And when I say the church, I don't mean every church. I mean the church as a whole over the years, that I think many times the church has led with only truth. And let's be honest, there's some churches that when they've done that, they've done it in a hateful way. And if you have ever felt hate from a church on this issue, then let me be one who just apologizes. I am sorry. Maybe you had a child out of wedlock and the church said you're not allowed to worship here. Maybe you're same-sex attracted, or maybe you're practicing a gay lifestyle and the church has said the doors aren't open for you. I'm sorry. That's not the way it should be. Like I say at The Rock, we really believe we are Come As You Are church, and we want everybody to come. We want everybody to know that they belong. And my goal is, I'm not going to hide my goal. My goal is that when you belong, that you'll start to believe. That you'll believe in Jesus. That's my number one goal for you, is that you would believe in Jesus. And then that you would become like him. That we would all start living our life and saying, now that I believe in Jesus, I want to become like Christ. But unfortunately, the church, and I'm not saying every church, again, please hear me on that, because I know some churches have done this very well, but I know that there's some that have been hurt by the church because all the church has done is led with truth. And I think in this issue, especially of sexuality, the church needs to lead with grace. And we see that because that's what Jesus did. Again, we find it in this biography written by John. It's in the 4th chapter. We see a story how Jesus encountered a girl and he led with grace. It said that he actually came into this town of Samaria. And when he came to Samaria, he sat down next to a well, and this woman came to the well in the middle of the day to draw some water. And while she was doing that, Jesus said, "Hey, will you give me something to drink?" And she's like, whoa, why are you talking to me? You're a Jew, I'm a Gentile, you are supposed to hate me, right? That's all I've learned in all my life, is that you as Jewish religious people, that you hate me as a Gentile person, or as a Samaritan is a better way to say that. And Jesus immediately is like, well, I wouldn't be asking you for water. I wouldn't be sitting here if I hated you, right? Jesus didn't hate people who weren't like him. It's actually the exact opposite. People who are nothing like Jesus were always hanging out with Jesus. We see that in another biography of his in the book of Matthew, where Matthew says that Jesus was always hanging out with notorious sinners, prostitutes and tax collectors and people like that. And again, Matthew was the one who called them notorious sinners. But I love that, because what it shows is people that were nothing like Jesus loved to hang out with Jesus. Well, why would that be the case? Because Jesus loved to hang out with them, right? I mean, that's it. So Jesus is trying to show this woman that I know you have an idea about me, that you think that I hate you, but I don't hate you. I think in this issue of the LGBTQ+, I think that unfortunately, because of things that have happened maybe in the past, there's people to think that, well, all Christians and all churches hate anybody who identifies as LGBTQ+. And again, I can't speak for every church, but I can speak for The Rock. Well, that's just not true. It's not true. I love you. I love all people. I don't care what your past is. I don't care what your beliefs are. I love you. Because I want you to know the gift of God that is for you. And that's what Jesus said in that moment. That he looked at this woman, he said, well, actually, if you knew who I was, you'd be asking me for a drink. And she's like, whoa, you don't even have a cup. How can you get me a drink of water? All right, this doesn't make sense. See, what Jesus is doing in this situation is he's entering with grace. He's saying, no, I do love you, and I have something for you that can actually change your life. He says, change your life. He says that the gift that I have for you is living water. It's living water. It can change your life, and it can make your life better than you ever dreamed. You see, it's all grace that Jesus led with. And their conversation goes just a little bit further, and then eventually he brings up her sexuality. Okay, so here's what I want you to catch. We don't know how long the conversation is, all right? We just get the words of it. I don't know if it's a 5-minute conversation at this point. I don't know if it's a 30-minute conversation. But finally, at some point in the relationship, he then brings up her sexuality. He goes, hey, well, why don't you go get your husband? And she's like, well, I don't have a husband. He goes, yeah, you're right. I know that. You've had multiple husbands, and the guy that you're living with right now isn't your husband, all right? That I want you to see what's going on here is that Jesus doesn't bring up her sexuality until he is in relationship with her and has an opportunity to speak into it. And here's what I love about that, is Jesus cares way more about her spirituality than her sexuality. But through her sexuality, he then starts to bring up truth. And I believe that he did so because he was saying that, listen, your whole life has been wrapped up in your sexuality, but I have something so much better for you. Rather than thinking that your sexuality will bring your fulfillment and bring you life, let me show you that life can be found inside of a relationship with me. And then he brings up truth. And let me just read it for you. Again, I'm going to the book of John. And it's chapter 4, and it says, verse 23, it says this, but the time is coming, indeed, it's here now, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. And it's now in truth. Let me keep reading, I'm sorry. The Father is looking for those who will worship him that way. So now he's finally bringing up truth to her. And he's saying, listen, enter into a relationship with me, that now is the time to worship in spirit and in truth. Do you see what Jesus has done? Is he's led with grace so that he could then bring up truth. And the truth is that her identity needed to be found in Christ. That's where her identity was. And then it goes on to see the rest of the story as it says that her life was changed. That everything in her life changed because she realized that she belonged inside of a relationship with Jesus. And then she put her belief in Jesus. And when she started to believe in Jesus, then she started to walk out her faith and started to become more like Jesus. And that is my goal for you. That is my goal for me, that I want all of us to recognize that we belong so that we can believe in Jesus, and then so that we can become like Jesus. That is the goal. And that's my goal for you, all right? And that's the reason I say, let's quit worrying as much about sexuality as we do about spirituality. Because it's our spirituality that should define us. That's what should define us. And then as we walk out that relationship with Jesus, then we should walk in truth, all right? And I think you understand it, and you know where I stand on this. And as a church that we do believe that God ordained marriage and sexuality to be experienced inside of a man and a woman in a covenant relationship for life. Now, that's my belief. It might not be your belief right now. I'm okay with that, because what I want you to do is to step into a relationship with Jesus. And then as you walk with Jesus, then just start to become more like him. That's what I hope for your life. Guys, that's about it, man. I hope this explains some things. I hope it helps you in your journey. Definitely invite you to watch other videos and follow along that way. I definitely invite you to come to church, all right, and enjoy being part of belonging to a body here at The Rock. But also, man, if you ever have questions, man, I'm always available. Feel free to email me. You can find my email through our website on The Rock, and I would love to touch base with you that way. Guys, that's about it for now. Hope you enjoyed this rendition of Love Handles. Peace.